Hey there, folding fans. Welcome back to yet another episode of Foldspace Live. And here today we are going to be folding a really adorable raccoon designed by my dear friend, Julie Juniper. And some of you may be familiar with Julie's work. She's relatively new to the origami scene, but she has already created some really fantastic designs. And is yeah, I don't know, I think really making a name for herself out there in the origami community. And I am really honored to be able to teach her models. I've taught a bunch of her stuff already. Last year I did a live stream for her alligator, and then I featured her rhinoceros model in my autumn retreat, and her both of which are fantastic models. So yes, now we're about to jump right into it. But before I forget, if you're new here and you enjoy in-depth origami tutorials, where you learn lots of different techniques, tricks, tools of the trade, then you're in the right place. And if you'd like to see more, please hit that subscribe button. I am working hard to try to build my YouTube presence. And so if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoy what you're seeing, please hit that like button. Okay, so now that obligatory announcement is out of the way. Oh, and look here, Julie is in the chat. I'm so happy that Julie could make it today. Julie is actually en route. She's on her way to Japan. And so, but I think she's tuning in maybe like from a car right now or something. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure, but it's not super important. But hey, all right. So let's get into it now. I just want to show you this display model that I folded out of double tissue. Now, one thing about this model is that it really works best with gray and black paper, if you ask me. And honestly, I don't think there are really any gray and black duo color options out in the world of like duo color paper, as far as like machine manufactured paper. So I feel like this is a really slept on market within like the origami industry, is like more variety of dual colors, because there's just so many there are endless combinations that we could use. But one way around that is just to make your own double tissue, and double tissue is actually a really fantastic folding medium. It, believe it or not, works super well, and it works great for shaping. Plus, it's super thin. The paper is nice and malleable. And normally you don't think of tissue paper as being like a high quality paper. And, it does have some of its own limitations. Like it's not color fast. So it typically will fade pretty easily. But all things considered, I think it's a really great technique to use to make your own colors. I've talked about double tissue before in the past. And one thing I'm planning to do is some more videos just on technique and subjects like preparing double tissue or cutting large sheets of paper into nice squares. Brent here in the comments said that, or in the chat said he painted one side of some black kami with gray, and I love to hear that, especially because I know he got prepared for this class. He knew it was coming, so he prepared some paper, which I think is a fantastic idea. But if you're just learning this for the first time, kami works great. And I will say that this model does get pretty thick in places, so you really can't use paper that's much thicker than kami. Now, if the size of the paper, the area is bigger, then you can kind of get away with slightly heavier paper. But even at this scale, the kami is still a little thick, but it still works just fine. Now, at the end, I'm going to show you some shaping techniques, because both of these that I'm holding here in my hand, I did some shaping post-fold. This model does need a bit of shaping and maybe a bit of wet folding, or maybe even a little dot of glue. uh, if you have no qualms with using a little bit of glue. But yeah, we'll get into that in the end. Oh, and also at the end, I'm going to have some a few fun announcements and some big news I want to share with you all. So yeah, please stay tuned for that. Now, for as far as scale is concerned, I can show you this little brown and white guy was folded from a sheet of 7-inch kami. So you can get an idea of how much the paper shrinks down as far as the ratios are concerned. And I'm going to teach the model with a piece of 24 centimeter kami, and that will yield a model that is this big. And of course, I'm going to use blue just so that it shows up a little bit better on the screen. So, all right, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, we're going to start with the colored side facing up, the non-body color side. And we're going to begin with 2 diagonal folds. So I'm going to start by taking that bottom corner, and I'm going to match it up to the top corner. Again, if you look at this piece of this model that is folded out of kami, the white side here is showing up as the body and this part of the face. Okay. So we'll open it up and then fold our other diagonal. So I like to rotate the paper so I can start at the bottom and fold up and away from myself. And make that second fold. All right, and let's open up the paper. And this model has a lot of pleating. So we're going to start with our first set of pleats. And so we're going to subdivide the paper. We're subdividing this creased edge into some segments that are equal to 1/8. So to do that, we're going to start by folding 1/4 of this crease segment. But in other words, we're just going to take that bottom corner and we're going to bring it to the center intersection of the paper. Okay. And let's go ahead and just rotate the paper and do the same thing on the opposite side. And once we do, we can unfold those flaps. So now we have the quarter segments, 1/4 of that center diagonal crease line. And so now we need to fold the inner 1/8. And so to do that, we can take that bottom corner and fold it up to meet the farthest intersection we have available to us, way up here. And what also happens is that this crease here in the paper should align with that center crease line behind it, more or less. And let's do the other side. I'm going to rotate, and I'm going to take that bottom corner and fold it to the farthest intersection way up here. And we'll open up the paper once again. So you'll see that we have all valley creases on this side of the paper. And now we're going to complete this first set of pleats by putting some mounting creases in between these 4 inner 1/8 sections. So to do that, let's flip the paper over, and I'm going to flip it over top to bottom so that those creases I just made are still running horizontally. And the reason I want to do that is because notice we've got our center crease line, and just below it, I'm going to take this crease, this mounting crease, and I'm going to pinch the paper. And this is a classic pleating technique when you're subdividing with parallel lines. I'm going to, and well, not always parallel, but in this case they are parallel. Take that bottom, well, this crease, mountain crease that we just kind of pinched, and we're going to bring it up to that center crease line. Now when I make these creases, I tend to like to get the crease started, but I don't necessarily like to push down on this top layer because that's going to kind of emboss the paper. Now it's not really going to matter so much because we're about to make a crease that falls right about here. But anyway, just as a general rule of thumb, I like to get the crease started and then lift the flap up and then get that crease sharpened once everything is in place and lined up. So now I'll take this next mounting crease and do the same thing where I pinch and I bring it to that center line and I get the crease started, but then I'm going to kind of lift the paper up to sharpen the crease. Now there's nothing wrong with pressing down on this top layer, but what ends up happening is that it starts to sort of emboss. You get a little bit of a faint crease line on this flap, and we don't really need that crease line. And if you're concerned about your model looking really clean at the end when you finish folding it, that's a good way to avoid that. So all right, well, we've got our pleating done on this half of the model, and we're going to do the same exact thing with the other side. So I rotate the paper. I'm going to start with this upper mounting crease, pinch that, bring it to the middle, line it up, get that crease started, and then I'm going to lift it up to sharpen that crease, and do the same thing with this next crease, bring that to the middle. All right, so we've completed our first set of pleats, and you can see that we've already got a color change pattern, and you can probably start to see how we end up with the color change pattern for the tail and the color change pattern for the face. This is a great way to get a color change pattern. There's a classic origami snake model. That's basically, if you were to pleat the rest of the paper in the same way, you would get that repeating pattern. And you have this long piece of paper that then you can turn into a snake. And it is still the year of the snake. Not for long. Next year we have the year of the horse coming up. Anyway, not to get too off topic here. Now, we need to install some creases in the head area. Okay, so I'm just going to determine that this is going to be the head. But to do that, we have to unfold the paper first. Now, we are going to put it back just like this. But let's go ahead and open up the paper. And so if I'm installing the head creases here, I'm going to rotate the paper so that now the corner that I'm making the head creases for is down here on the bottom left. And this next crease will not travel all the way across the paper. So notice we have these pleats running diagonally now. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this point of the paper, this corner, and we're going to bring it up so that it meets the very first diagonal crease just above it. But when we crease, of course, we're going to make a crease that runs parallel to the bottom edge. We're going to stop creasing when we hit this final crease, this mountain fold in our initial set of pleats. So here's what that looks like. I'm going to take the bottom edge and bring that point to the end point of that first crease line. Now, we do have a handy set of references here that will help keep the paper aligned and help ensure that this crease is more or less parallel to this edge. If you first, get that alignment on the corner, but then if you notice, the ends of these diagonal creases should intersect or meet these creases here, here, and here. So that's a handy reference. And remember, we're only creasing to that that very last crease line. So you can kind of get them all in place. And then I'm going to crease from here, and I'm going to stop. Okay, now unfold that. And now we want to do the same thing to this side. So I'm going to rotate the paper 90 degrees. The head corner is still here at the bottom. And I'm going to do the same thing where I bring that bottom edge up so that it meets that first crease And then you use the crease lines if you can see them well enough. I'd be overshooting a little bit. So yeah, that's really helpful. I'm using those to adjust. It can be kind of hard to see. There you go. All right, so now we have another crease, and these are pre-creases that will come in handy when we are shaping the head, which is what we're going to work on next. But first, we have to recollapse the paper. And so we're just going to replete everything. One side, replete once again on this side. So now we're back here. And the creases we just made are up here in the head. And of course, you could probably figure out that this part's going to become the head, this part becomes the body, and this part becomes the tail. It's very straightforward, which is nice. Okay, so now we're going to install a new set of pleats that travel through the pleats that we just made. And we're going to start way up here, and hold on a second, let me just okay. So we're going to pinch in a mountain fold, and that mountain fold is going to travel through this intersection right here. So it's at the top of this big white rhombus that we have here, and you're going to want to pick up the paper for this. And I am actually going to, so I typically keep the focus of my camera locked because I don't like the way it adjusts. I feel like it's kind of distracting, but I'm actually going to turn that feature, the autofocus on, because I'm going to do a lot of this folding in the air and get it a little bit closer to the camera. So that'll help keep things in focus. Yeah, see, there you go. All right, so pinching a mountain fold here. And so just try to go right through that intersection. And then one thing I like to do is I kind of check on the back to make sure that this flap is still lining up. But you can kind of see what's going on here and here. Now, oh, here's another tip, because I almost just made this mistake. Sometimes, well, anytime that you have a stack of pleats like this, and if you're holding the paper and you're pinching it and you're creasing like this, you have to be really careful. I do this sometimes, and it drives me nuts when I do because it's really jarring. But if you're pinching and creasing, you gotta make sure you don't pull that outer layer out. Has anybody here ever experienced that? Because it still happens to me. I have to be really careful. Now, you could get that crease started and put it on the table and sharpen it. Or if you want to sharpen it while it's in the air, just kind of pinch and just make sure you're not pulling the paper out. Okay. Now, we are going to, so we just made a mountain fold, and now we're going to make a valley fold that goes from this corner to this corner. So to do that, we can take this mountain fold that we pinched, and we can, again, pinch the mountain fold and bring it to the top of this white rhombus right here. So I'm going to do that same technique, but now I'm doing it in the air, and I'm going to bring that all the way up to there, like so. And then give it a good crease. And finally, I'm going to put one more mountain fold in that will follow the edge of this mountain fold. So once again, we're mountain folding through the top of that, or in between those rhombi where they kind of join. Okay. All right. So let's unfold that next set of pleats, but before you can kind of see, we've got a new accordion fold going on here, and we unfold back to here. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the diagram image for some of these next few steps. Okay, so first thing I want to point out is, notice that right here, there is a crease, an existing crease line. Now that crease line is here in this dark part, but it's not on this front layer, okay? So you're always gonna wanna start with this. And what you wanna do is take the very top layer only, okay? There's another pleat underneath it. Let's leave that alone. We'll take this, and if you kind of follow the existing valley crease here, and kind of hold the papers together, pinch it together, you can swing that down to get this next part started. Now the paper is not going to lie flat here for a minute, but you can see that we've now got this 45-degree angle coming down. We've got our right isosceles triangles, okay? And the other thing that happens naturally along an existing crease is there's a valley crease right here that the paper, and that's that crease that we installed along the edge of the corner of the head. So if we pull that down, let this part come down, we can flatten this bit, but this part here in the middle is not going to sit flat. Okay, and if you look at the diagram image there, you can see where there's the valley creases, and then there's that horizontal mountain crease that's here, that swings down, and then lines up here. Okay, so let's do that again on the other side. And by the way, that's what it looks like. But here, I'll just keep that up there. Again, use the existing crease right here. Take only the top flap and kind of follow that existing crease so that it makes a new crease through that upper layer, the white part, and then kind of flatten this out, and now we're here. Okay, and this is where we're essentially doing a bit of box pleating. Box pleating involves a bunch of creases that intersect at 90-degree angles, and then you've got oftentimes 45-degree angles that then go through those intersections of the parallel and perpendicular 90-degree angle creases. Anyway, what we're going to do is we want to flatten this, okay? And notice how this just goes to one side here. So let it go to one side, flatten it, give it a pinch, and that's what we're looking at, okay? Now, one thing that I do, Julie doesn't specify this in her diagram, but one thing I like to do, I like to keep the flaps even. So once those creases are in place, I open this back up again, and I'm gonna take that one flap that's, the one that's kind of sitting, they both went to one side. Well, I want one to go to each side. So I'm going to take this one and kind of open it back up and refold it. So you don't even see that part of the model in the finished result, but I just like to try to keep things balanced whenever possible. So there we go. All right. Okay, cool. Now, we are going to take before I move on here, let me repeat that because I did get a request here. Okay, so if you didn't already get this part, here's where we were. We swiveled this flap down, and then you just kind of pinch it as it falls in place. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. This one swings down, the paper swivels, and then you get to here. And from there, we're going to pleat, and we're engaging the valley crease that's here and the mountain crease that's here. And initially, when you pinch that down, you can send them both to one side, like so. And then I like to open it back up and kind of pull this out to the other side so that the flaps are even. All right, hopefully that helped. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that you have some existing creases that form an X. And really what I want you to look at is that we've got these 4 rhombi. And so if you look at the bottom rhombi here, and if you just kind of eyeball the center of that rhombus, which is right in between these 2 corners here, we're going to use that as our landmark and take the tip, fold it down so that it lands right in the middle of that bottom rhombus. And this is going to give us the stripe for the face. And so that's what it looks like. Okay, now for this next part, you're going to want to hold that corner in place. And we've got this extra sort of trapezoidal flap hanging out up here. And we've got an existing creased edge behind it. And we're just going to take that extra paper that's sticking out the top and just fold it, wrap it behind like this. And then we're going to take these 2 corners and we're going to fold each of them behind at a 45-degree angle, basically through the center of each of these 2 halves. So if you flip it on the back and you want to see it from there, you're basically taking this corner. Now this doesn't have to line up exactly, and in fact, having a little bit of a gap in the middle, I mean, it kind of happens naturally because the paper's so thick here, but notice I folded one corner in, I'm going to fold the other corner in, and notice that those creases don't meet, but that's okay because if you look on the other side, it just kind of makes the tip of the nose slightly blunted, which I think is a nice effect. And now we have finished folding the head. And I'm going to rotate the paper now, like so. You can see that cute little face. All right. Now we're going to work on the tail, and we're going to do some more of the same style of pleating, except for we're going to do it a little differently this time for the tail, because our pleats are going to be a little bit smaller comparatively. So just to make sure, I always like to double check the diagram to make sure I'm getting it right. Okay, cool. So once again, we're going to make our first mountain crease at the top of the big body rhombus right here. So here we go. I'm going to pinch that in like that. And I'll check on the back and make sure everything is lining up. Okay. We're going to use that same technique where we pinch and we bring this up. But this time, instead of bringing it all the way up here like we did before, we're bringing it to meet the line created by these 2 corners of this little white rhombus. So you see this one is half the size of the ones we did before, but now you can start to see the pattern that emerges with those color changing triangles. Okay, and then we're going to do it again, starting at the top of these 2 white triangles here. This top point, once again, we put a mountain fold going through and do the same thing. Now we take that mountain fold pinch and we bring it to the line created by these 2 corners, if you were to imagine that. So the corners meet the other corners, and then now we've got a pattern for the tail. Before we go on from that, we're going to put some creases in on the other side of the paper. So let's flip the paper over. And these creases are going to help lock these pleats that we just made into place. And if you look from the side here, notice we've got this little section. And what we're going to do now is take each of these four corners created by the pleating, and we're going to, and notice how I'm kind of holding the pleats together with one hand. So then I can take my other hand and I'm going to kind of pinch that corner and fold it up. And this is on the inside of the model. So, and the paper's really thick, so it's not going to necessarily line up perfectly, which is fine because you're not really going to see it. But notice how the pleat kind of dictates how far up you can fold that corner. And it's the same with the other three. So I'll do the other one on this side. I'm pinching the pleats, kind of turning that corner up, and give it a good pinch. And I'll repeat on the left side. And using that horizontal edge that's behind it, you can't see it. It's going to guide the size and the position of those little triangles. The paper, the bottom pleat, the paper is thicker, you might notice. So these are a little bit messier just because you've got so many layers of paper. And that's one thing about this model, is that as we continue pleating the paper, we just keep doubling up the thickness in certain areas, more or less. Not always doubling, but the thickness builds up pretty fast. Okay, so folding those little corners in are going to lock those pleats into place, like so. Now, before we flip the paper back over, let's go on and we're going to take these two side corners of the single layer flaps and we're going to bring them in to meet this central flap on both sides. So it's going to start shaping the body a little bit. And not only that, it's going to give us some new corners to work with, which are going to come in super handy for this next step. All right, now let's flip the paper back over again. And it's really coming together. As a quick aside, creating animals in origami that have 4 legs can be a rather challenging design process, or at least, well, excuse me. What I'm really trying to say is that sometimes in origami designs that have 4 legs, getting those 4 legs plus like a head and a tail can add a bit of complexity. But there are clever ways to create 4 legs. And as long as you've got these 4 corners of the paper, that's something we can work with, okay? And the legs don't have to be super detailed or anything. And in this case, of course, the legs are formed just from these 2 little crease segments and points, and that's it. So I think it's really clever design on Julie's part. But before we get to shaping the legs, we're going to add a few more pleats. And we can use those new corners as a guide to do yet another mountain fold that connects those 2 corners. And once again, if you're folding in the air, I caution you to not pull those outer layers off to the side. Sometimes the paper will rip when you do that. And it can be really frustrating when you've spent all this time folding a model and you're just sharpening a crease. Everything might be so perfect and lined up, and then you get to this point and whoosh. All right. Sharpen. Okay, so we've got our mountain crease, and we're going to repeat the same technique that we've been using, but when we make this pleat for the head, we're going to leave a little bit of a gap. So before you do this, just watch me, and I'm going to do that same thing where I pinch the paper and I bring it up, but I'm going to leave a small gap behind the ears. Okay, so you can kind of think of it as like the neck flap. Okay. Doesn't have to be much. I'm going to put the paper on the table. Oh, see, I started to emboss it through those layers, just as I was saying I didn't like to do. Okay, so that's how we do the front side. And we're going to do the same on the back side, except this time we're not leaving a gap. But I'll show you what we do. We're going to take those two corners. We're going to make a mountain fold. And hey, Mark in the chat, thanks for all your support and for enjoying my videos. Now, Mark, you asked the question about my videos on Facebook, which were all live streamed back in 2020 when we were in lockdown. I did not remove those, but Facebook did. Facebook went through and removed a bunch of old video content for everybody. So sadly, those are gone. But I did download them, and hopefully, what I'm planning to do is go back and reshoot a lot of that stuff. So, okay, so we've got our mountain crease here, and notice here and here, we've got these corners, or there's a vertex essentially created at this color change. Now we're going to pinch that and bring that to. So that's a clean landmark right there. No gap required. Okay, we're almost done. And so now we're going to install these little creases. And so one thing about the body of this model is that it's formed just simply from this one. Hold on, I just noticed it's a little crooked. The central part, and there isn't really much paper to work with here, and it's just simply a couple of rectangles. So what we're going to do, we're going to make some crease segments that do not travel all the way through the paper. So I've got this corner here, and I've got this corner here. Now, when you fold the front legs, you want to start on both sides with the front legs. And if you can imagine a crease that travels from this corner all the way down to this point where the tail and the body make this right angle, that's going to give us the angle for the crease, but we're going to stop when we hit the middle of the paper. So we're only creasing here. So to do that, I'm going to kind of shift the paper a little bit. What you can do is, pretend like you are going to crease all the way through. And we're just going to be careful not to crease this as much as possible. But that's going to give us the alignment that we need. And one thing that you have to contend with is that this flap down here is going to shift around a little bit. And so, again, I'm folding in the air, kind of holding those layers together while I bend the paper. And once I find that corner, I can start to pinch that crease in. And then notice I stop when I hit the center. Okay, so it gives us 1/2 of that crease. Now, for the other half, now we can use the end point of this mountain crease that we just pinched in and travel to the other back corner here. And so, watch this. You can just, this does take some air folding ability. Good. It's a good time to practice air folding and pinching creases. So see how I kind of use my fingers like this. And there you go. I'll do the same on the other side. So starting with the front leg, from this front corner, we imagine a crease line that connects all the way down to this vertex. And the flaps of the paper work nicely to kind of just find that line. If you just kind of wrap that down a little bit, and I'm going to find that corner, and I've got the angle that I need, but now I'm just going to pinch the front half. And that gives us the first little bit, and then we'll connect with this back corner and try to find that endpoint. And what this is essentially an inside reverse fold that's not going to be completely flattened. I mean, and you can almost think of it as an inside reverse fold, like if you go all the way like this here. But of course, we're just trying to create mountain creases that give us volume in the body. Okay. So now it looks like a flying squirrel, flying raccoon. It's like the Tanuki suit in Super Mario Brothers, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, now the moment we've all been waiting for. This is often my favorite part. A lot of people will agree, is now we've got this flat thing that's symmetrical, and now we're going to fold it in half. But this model has a lot of thick pleats running throughout. So it can be a little bit tricky, but we can, again, pick up the paper and start to bend the model in half. And we're going to do some shaping here in a little bit, so you don't have to worry too much about getting it absolutely perfect. We're just going to sort of start to get the paper used to like this final form that we're after. Okay, so if we do that, now for the head, what you're going to have to do is decide, and I find this to be kind of an arbitrary decision when I'm making these, but you'll notice that the head is looking to one side, or it's tilted to one side. So just decide which direction you want the head to go in. All right. And what we're going to do now, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to have the raccoon looking to the right. Again, I just kind of arbitrarily picked that. But here's one thing we can do. Let's take the head, and notice that I'm kind of holding the body closed. I'm going to take the head and I'm going to swing it over to one side. And once I'm over here, I'm going to pinch this area because I really want to sort of define this crease here. Okay. And so, I'm kind of reaching in here. I'm just kind of pinching all the layers to get this crease going. And actually, I would say that if you were wet folding, and in fact, I'm gonna get the spray bottle out here in just a second. If you're accustomed to spritzing the model a little bit when you're shaping at the end, if you were to spritz it before that step, then it might hold a little better in the end before you fold it dry, instead of folding it dry. Okay, so that's going to get the head in position, and you can kind of tilt the ears forward if you want a little bit. Basically, from here on out, it's all shaping, although there is another step for the tail, which is optional in a way, but we can add a crimp right here to make the tail angled down, and that's in Julie's original design. So now again, the thickness of the paper makes creating a crimp in here kind of tricky. But one way you can kind of approach this is if you just sort of pinch that tail flap. And notice I'm still kind of holding the body closed. I mean, I'm not like flattening it or anything. But if you kind of pinch here and notice how I'm kind of using my thumb and finger to kind of push inward a little bit. And you see I can kind of change the angle like this. Actually, at this point, I'm more supporting it up here. I think that's probably a better place. Yeah. So you can kind of push that in a little bit. It doesn't need to be too severe of an angle. But once you push that in a little bit, you do need to give it kind of a good pinch to reestablish those creases there. Okay. And there you go. Another thing we can do here is you can take the 4 feet and kind of pull them in together like this. And by doing that on both sides, that's going to give us this really nice shaping of the body, this really nice volume. And at this point, all of the folding is done. And it's a good idea, if you don't have one already, to get yourself a spray bottle. And you want one that doesn't spit out too much water. You want something that creates a nice fine mist. Okay. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort of, and I'm going to hold this off to the side so I'm not like spraying here next to my computer. But I'm just gonna give it a few light spritzes, and I'm going to spritz both. I spritzed on both the top and the inside. Now you don't want to soak the paper. Just a few sprays is all you need. But once the paper is now damp, this is a good time to get out some sort of clamping mechanisms, and I'm going to show you a few different tools that I like to use. And I have used some combination of all of these in all of the raccoons that I've been folding in preparation for this class. Now, one thing you can do for the head to kind of get it to stay is you can take a paper clip, and honestly, you know what? I'm not going to use the paper clip. Isn't really going to work. Maybe if it was a clothespin. That's not a paper clip. I misspoke. But check these out. These are little clamps that are used for soldering, and a lot of these soldering clamps have little alligator teeth. So you don't want those for origami because that's going to put little holes in your paper. But these have this nice flat. Let's see if you can see that. There you go. Yeah. And so I'm going to use that. I'm going to kind of pull the head to the side and then kind of clamp it like that. Now the body wants to splay out quite a bit. So one thing I like to use is a little fuzzy pipe cleaner. And what's nice about this is that it's easy to kind of get a very kind of like I don't want the thing to be like completely constricted, but you want it to at least hold enough of its shape so that when the paper dries, it'll hopefully stay in that position. So you can wrap a little pipe cleaner around it, and the pipe cleaner is nice because in this case it's soft, so it's not going to be too rough on the paper. Or another thing, I just kind of figured this out the other day. I've got this was like a cord that was attached to like a small wood carving. Charles, if you're watching, he's the one who gave it to me because he collects these wood carvings, but he doesn't like the cords that come with them. So I took this little bead that was on the one end and I put it on the other end, and one of these raccoons, I kind of wrapped that like that, and there you go. And I even kind of hung it so it was suspended so that it would dry in the air. So there's that. For the tail, you have a few different options. What I did for this tail here, I was able to get a nice rounded shape. And to do that, you can use something like a small marker, or whatever size marker works for you. In fact, maybe Sharpie is a better size for this. But now, if your paper isn't damp anymore, you might want to rehydrate it a little bit. Another spritz, and you can kind of wrap that tail around a cylindrical object. And then, of course, to get it to stay, again, the pipe cleaner is nice because you can just kind of loosely wrap it. Now, I did notice that when I did that with this one here, when it dried, the paper did get a little wrinkly. But I still got kind of like a nice rounded shape once the paper dried, which is what we want. So, well, you might want that. Oh, that fell out. There we go. So, yeah. So you probably get the idea. See, again, this is kind of loosely wrapping, just enough to kind of hold the shape. This guy's getting all bound up here. So now, you set it aside, let the paper dry, and then come back and see how it turned out. Now, sometimes, like when I did that with this one, I had to redo some of it because it didn't want to stand anymore. I got a little too deformed on one corner, and so it just wasn't able to support its weight on 4 legs. But yeah, this is a really great way to shape the paper. Now, I mentioned before glue. Now, some of you don't want to have anything to do with glue, and I can respect that. But I'll tell you, a lot of the amazing origami models that you see posted online had some adhesive involved in holding all the flaps together. Okay, so I'm just going to take these off for now. There we go. Okay, so you might not need the glue, and honestly, I mean, already I feel like this is taking a nice shape. But I will say, I did use a drop of glue on this little guy, actually both of these, and so I've got this PVA here. It's basically archival white glue, and sometimes I like to just put one little dot right behind the ear. And as a lot of art teachers will say to their students, just a dot and not a lot. You really don't need much. And then, as before, you might want to clamp it somehow to kind of keep it in place. And yeah, and you can just kind of do whatever other shaping you want to do until you're happy with it. Shaping, it's kind of it's not all going to shape and just be finished all at once. It can be a gradual thing. Some folders like to just shape one area of the model and just focus on that and then move on to another area later. It's really kind of up to you. But there you have it. This fantastic raccoon model designed by Julie Juniper. Julie, thank you again for letting me teach this. And I really look forward to folding more of your models in the future. Now, one thing that I want to pull this up here. So I took this photo the other day. Now I'll be honest. I've had some difficulty photographing this model, and I don't know. I just like some models are difficult to really capture in a photograph, but I was so blown away when I took this photo. Now I'll give you a few hacks for taking really good origami photos. One, natural sunlight is the best lighting in my opinion. Now you don't want direct sunlight. You want it to be diffused a little bit. So if you have a nice bright sunny room, you can get out of the direct sunlight. That should produce enough like sort of ambient light to photograph the model. Also, I'm using an iPhone 15. I imagine maybe other smartphone cameras might have a feature like this, but on the iPhones, there's portrait mode, and portrait mode gives you that sort of depth of field where you see it's kind of blurry in the background. And my last piece of advice is to try to stabilize your camera so that it's not moving, whether it's on a tripod or in this case, I was just kind of resting the camera on the table when I took the photograph. So I just really loved this photograph. Now, actually, I'm going to jump back a little bit because Brent had a really good question, and I kind of forgot to mention this. Brent asked if you shape the back, and I actually totally do. Like, that's what I did. I did sort of create some really soft mounting creases here and here for this one. And it's a little bit harder to do that with thicker paper, like kami. It's hard to like think of kami as being thick paper. But with the tissue paper, the double tissue, it's shaped really nicely. It's amazing like how that thin paper just yields such a great result. Another thing I also want to add that I forgot as far as using glue, now, for this one, you'll notice that the tail is not very rounded. And the reason being is I actually put a little bit of glue right up in here in this corner. So again, I put a dot of glue in here, and then I used a clothespin and I kind of pinched it while it dried. And I felt like that kind of helped hold the back of the model together a little bit. But the trade-off is that the tail can't round as much here. Now you can still kind of round the rest of the tail, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be rounded, and especially if you're looking at it from the side. Donna mentioned that she used 6-inch Le Papier d'Amour, and I'm really curious. I don't actually know what that paper is, so I'd love to know more, Donna. You send some info my way. Finally, I think that's everything for the Raccoon. So just a few quick announcements. So my next live stream, I don't have an exact date, but I'm going to teach Rob Snyder's Unicorn. Now, we taught this model, or I say we, Rob taught this model at the 2020 Foldspace Online Convention. I know some of you here in the chat were there for that. But it's kind of wild. That was almost exactly 5 years ago today. I think it was September 24th through 26th in 2020. And that's almost exactly 5 years ago, which is kind of wild. And so I have a new friend recently asked if I could teach her how to fold an origami unicorn, because she was about to participate in this event that was like Blade Runner themed. And so she wanted to fold unicorns to give out to her friends, which is a really funny and I think a really great idea and really appropriate. And so I taught her Rob's unicorn. So it was really great to revisit this model. I really love this design, and I hadn't folded it in a really long time. And so I've been obsessed with folding unicorns this past week. So I'm going to do, my next live stream is going to be Rob's unicorn. Now, another exciting announcement that I have, you'll notice that this unicorn is folded with some really pretty tie-dye paper. And some of you might already recognize this as origami paper made by Tuttle Publishing. And I raved about Tuttle in my previous live stream because I think they're putting out some of the best origami books here in the US currently. And they're great value. They're working with really amazing creators, designers. And I'm excited to announce that Tuttle reached out to me after that last live stream for the Torygate, and we're going to do some collaborations here. And so I'm going to be reviewing some of their products. They're going to be sending me some books and paper to try out. And so that's another exciting thing we have coming down the road. Again, I'm really excited about working with Tuttle Publishing because I think they're putting out some really great origami products and working with some really great designers. So the next live stream is going to be the unicorn. It'll be on a Saturday at noon as is typical. However, I don't know the exact date. Reason being, my life is in a little bit of an upheaval right now, and it's not a bad upheaval, but it's a lot. And so I'm still not exactly sure when I'm going to be able to do the next one, but it will be within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So if you're not already on my email list, you can go to my link tree and you can join my email list there. I have the link for the link tree in the description for this live stream below. And so you can join the mailing list there. And so I send out email announcements. You can also subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And by the way, if you'd like to throw a tip in the tip jar, I do have links. They disappeared for a little while, but now I have links on the link tree for the tip jar. If and I would much appreciate your support, but it's no pressure. It's not required, obviously. But there are links to donate via Venmo or PayPal. And on that note, something else I want to throw in, back to the unicorn. So when we, and I say we, my friend and colleague Sarah Williams worked so hard alongside me to host that 2020 convention online. And Sarah put together this beautiful book of diagrams of all the models that were taught at the convention. And if you don't own this book and you'd like to buy a copy, there's a link in the description for Amazon where you can pick up your own copy. It's all print on demand. And so, of course, I get a little bit of a kickback for that too. But it's got diagrams for some really great models. And I do plan on revisiting some more of the convention models that were taught by the other fantastic creators and teachers who we worked with. But yeah, again, hard to believe that was 5 years ago. And yeah, so everybody in the chat, thank you so much. Again, thank you, Julie. I'm glad that you got to be here for this. Thank you, Brent, Mark, Teresa, Donna, and anyone else who might be out there watching. So I hope to see you here in a few weeks for Rob's Unicorn. And I think I've just about covered it all. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And stay tuned for more. Lots of exciting stuff in the can down the road. So with that being said, thanks so much. Happy folding, and I'll see you next time.